Welcome to Brian's first ever test battle report thingy. This is a game between my Khador and Andy's Khador. I ended up dropping Vlad 1, or Vlad 2, sorry, with a Conquest, Max Shock Troopers with the UA along with their Kovnik, 2 units of Eliminators, then a full unit of Winter Guard Rifle Corps with 3 rockets, and then Kovnik Joe is with them as well. Andy is playing Sorsha 1 with a Conquest being played as, or the Galleon being played as a Conquest. Behemoth is also in his battle group. He brought 2 Winter Guard Mortar Crews and 2 Winter Guard Rifle Corps min units with 3 rockets in each one. He also has Silas to round out his list. I did forget that there are mechanics in the Khador list as well as Saxon Auric leading up the front. We did forget to deploy on the clock in this game. I think it was just fiddling around with the camera a little too much. We were just going through and defining the terrain. We got rubble, or starting at the top, we have the circular building, the little rocky patches being played as rubble, a pool or water, I guess, on Andy's side of the table, and then there's rubble in the middle of the zone, along with a hill on my side of the table. Then that square house is that square piece of terrain is an obstruction. Then there's a wall template followed by a forest going back around. We are playing Recon with Andy's objective being Effigy of Valor, and I believe mine is being played as Effigy as well, just because I couldn't. I haven't solidified what the objective would be in this list right now. Mostly I'm just getting it on the table to see how it plays and get a gist of it. So you can see my deployment is a little funky. The Winter Guard Rifle Corps are on the very top of the screen, followed by Shock Troopers, and then Vlad. Then the Conquest is unfortunately cut off the screen with the mechanics, and then the Chaosy Eliminators are kind of interwoven behind the units because they can just run through it, so deploying them isn't a big deal. Saxon Auric is going to get thrown down because I forgot to deploy him just in front of that hill there. Andy's deployment is fairly symmetrical. 2 units of Rifle Corps on the outside, followed by Mortar Crew, then Behemoth and Conquest in the middle. Sorsha, I believe, is behind the Conquest, along with Silas. So the first order of business for me is to just kind of run the Rifle Corps up with Tough on them. I know that Andy's probably going to lob some AoEs out and try to get some early casualties going on my side. I do have Joe calling Tough on them. Then we have the Manowar Kovnik going up and putting Desperate Pace out on the Shock Troopers, and then the Shock Troopers just running up to kind of get to the table a little quicker. Now they do cover quite a bit of ground with Desperate Pace, and then you can get them with other casters that can make them even faster. So the Shock Troopers, I think, are starting to become like a staple unit for Khador, where they weren't really thought like that they would ever be staples before. So now I'm just weaving in Eliminators, running the Conquest up. My goal is to try and get him around the house that way. It's causing me some problems trying to get him where I want him to be. I'd rather him just go soldier forward and try and get into the zone early, but beggars can't be choosers, and I figured that the Shock Troopers would have a much more difficult time getting into a meaningful position if I had tried to do the same for them. You can see Andy's trying to measure out where his AoEs are going to fly. Like I said, I was pretty correct when I figured that he would try and throw AoEs right away instead of running to commit to the table. It's a double-edged sword. Right now he's He tries to hit the Winter Guard, it misses, and because I mean that he's shooting at Rat 1. It deviates off to nowhere, and then there, like I said, there's something to be said about running forward with those. The Rifle Corps themselves, though, having a 20-inch threat kind of make that a little bit more difficult. But Andy's list is super heavy on the shooting, so you can almost assume that he's going to be throwing the AoEs from downtown instead of trying to commit to the zone with those Rifle Corps. His list is built built in an extreme skew for assassination, with having 6 rockets, the Conquest and Behemoth. There's a lot of high damage output in those shots. You can see now we're just trying to check line of sight to see where these rockets are going to go. Several times Andy forgets that pie plate that those Winter Guard are standing and behind is a building that blocks line of sight. So there's some reconfiguring that needs to happen throughout the game as far as where he's sending those AoEs. And Andy's a wonderful Khador player and can't quite figure out the speed of all his models, even though he just got done moving half of them. So back here, I think we just have Sorsha coming up and throwing out Fog of War for the first turn, and I believe she Boundless Charged the Behemoth, because he's going to, Boundless Charge on the Behemoth. Next up, it looks like the Behemoth is charging a random model with Boundless Charge. He charges 9 inches, where he would only run 8 without it, and he doesn't have Pathfinder naturally, so that helps him get up the table a little quicker. And then the Conquest is running up to base the objective to just try and start getting or becoming relevant on the table. And then this is another one where Andy's trying to lob some AoEs to kill some models early on in the game. So I believe this one actually drifts on and catches Saxon Auric, and unfortunately it's not enough damage to box him. So losing Saxon Auric early would be not a super great time, because that rubble in the middle is not something that the Man of War are going to be able to get through real easy. But Saxon Auric at dice -3 ends up having only ends up taking 2 points from that high explosive mortar shot. So you can see that Andy is utilizing the forest pretty well here, because he can see through it to get my Conquest, but my Conquest cannot see through it to get him. And right here he's praying for some super crazy scatters, and nothing coming out of that. So I believe on turn 1, when I had moved Lad up, I had dropped a sail on the Conquest. I put up Arcane Might on myself, as well as putting Hand of Fate on the Man of War. Now I kind of feel like that was a bit of a mistake, just because that the Hand of Fate this early in the game isn't doing much work on the Man of War. It should probably go on the Rifle Corps, but like I said, I'm just going to blame it on me trying to get this video set up. So you can kind of see I've set a nice little chain of Winter Guard in the front there. I understood that the AoEs would more likely than not take them all out, but what I need to do in this top corner, or in this top side of the screen here, is I need to start I need to start killing Winter Guard to try and win the Winter Guard Rifle Corps race. I have Joe, so I hit a little bit easier than he does, but I need to be able to draw first blood on those guys. So the Joe ends up giving them additional die to hit, because trying to roll for 7s is something that I really want. Now, if I had Hand of Fate on them in the beginning, like I feel like I should have, I probably would have put Tough on them in hopes that they would be they would survive a little bit more against the AoEs. But either way, I don't think it really matters a whole lot here. I'm not too torn up about not having Tough on these guys. And you can see that there's just the little edge of the dice box in the bottom of the screen there. When I had first framed this, the box was in the camera's frame, and now we realize it's not. It looks like the camera's a bit at a tilt, so there's just a lot of kinks that I need to work out before I get this thing up and running properly. Maybe you guys can help me out with this. I might want to tilt the camera up a little higher. I don't know if this perspective or this level of view is preferred. I think it doesn't look terrible. You're a little closer to the table and you can kind of see things well enough to where there's not a whole lot that's blocking sight, and you can for the most part tell what models are what, other than the ones that are either not painted or kind of mixing in with one another, like how Andy's Winter Guard are. Even my Winter Guard, you probably couldn't tell they were rifles. Never mind, I can tell they're rifles from here, but that's just me looking at them, knowing what I need to do. Now you can see me just laying out a template here to find out what the conquest thread is, because I don't want my conquest charged. So this is where I learned that my camera or my phone will only hold about a half hour of video at a time. So let me know what you thought of that, and I'll work on it from there.